Okay, so we are going to a very interesting topic. You know, all the topics are always very interesting, but anyway, um, so it's a question that I want us to answer, which really is soft life going to affect our future as a civilization, right? So I'm going to start this particular um, podcast by reading an article by
Okay.
Ernest Lyons, right? It's called The Triumph and Terror of Wang Hunin.
Wang Hunin. Badu.
Okay.
We heal, sir, wherever you are.
You said what?
We're healing him.
You're hailing who and who?
Who are the admirers of the intentionality of the CCP.
Right. Okay. Just the intentionality.
Yes. Just
That's
intentionality, nothing else.
okay. Very good.
We like how they're intentional.
I hear you, brother. Anyway, so there's some part of the article that states, so it's a long read, so just follow me. It says, feeling alone and unable to get ahead in a ruthlessly consumerist society, Chinese youths increasingly describe existing in a state of nihilistic despair, encapsulated by the online slang term Nudran. I hope I'm pronouncing it well, which means involution, which describes a turning inward by individuals and society due to a prevalent sense of being stuck in a draining rat race where everyone inevitably loses. This despair has manifested itself in a movement known as tankping or lying flat, in which people attempt to escape that rat race by doing the absolute bare minimum amount of work required to live, becoming modern ascetics. In this environment, China's fertility rate has collapsed to 1.3 children per woman as of 2020. Um, as of 2020, below Japan and above only South Korea as the lowest in the world, plunging its economic future into crisis. Ending family size limits and government attempts to persuade families to have more children have been met with incredulity and ridicule by Chinese young people as being totally out of touch with economic and social reality. Do they not yet know that most young people are exhausted just supporting themselves? Asked one typically viral post on social media. It's true that given China's cutthroat education education system, raising even one child costs a huge sum. Estimates range between 30,000 and $115,000 depending on location. And that's about 7 times the annual salary of the average citizen. But even those Chinese youths who could afford to have kids have found they enjoy a new lifestyle, the coveted DINK. DINK is an acronym for double income, no kids. So a DINK life in which well-educated young couples, married or not, spend all that extra cash on themselves. As one thoroughly liberated 27-year-old man with a vasectomy once explained to the New York Times, for our generation, children aren't a necessity. Now we can live without any burdens. So why not invest our spiritual and economic resources on our own lives? So you see my topic of today. When I say
Please
it's an
send me that
interesting one.
article. I need to read it again.
I remember when you said this article. This article came out. This was last year,
Was it the one where he was going from country to country to check about consumerism?
October 11th
Yeah,
last
planning
year.
the future of China and how they were surprised
Yep.
by what they found out.
Yep. The article was a very interesting one. I think we can put the link to the article or something somewhere. But anyways, so yeah, that particular phrase in that article it piqued my interest when I read it then, and I've seen it in one place. I've heard of that tankping concept, just lying and doing nothing, and I've also heard variations even in Nigeria of young people who just like they will just do the barest minimum. It's something that has amazed people where you find out that younger people of today are not necessarily working to get houses and cars like um older millennials and the generation before them used to do. In fact, I've heard people say things like it's only a generation, older generation, millennials and co that were that like things like that. Now there's Uber and there's Airbnb, so you don't need to be a house owner and you don't need to have cars, right? They'll say they value things more like experiences over possessions and different things, right? I've heard of one of my first encounters with such people were I knew someone who saved up all her money so that she could travel, right? The first year she saved up all her money so she could travel to Dubai. Next year she was saving all of her money so she could travel to Italy. And she dreamt of just having a life where she has maybe just one backpack and she's traveling around. I think the phrase for it now is
Yes.
digital nomads.
It's becoming more. That thing is becoming more common.
So it's common. Like if you ask people what they are working for, if they find how they will share eat and how they will have a roof over their head, they're good with it. Now, the angle this article even went to is the article. It went to the angle of how it's affecting two things. It mentioned China's economic future, and also economic future because of its lack of workforce and its family future. Like he said, you could see the highly liberated 27-year-old already got a vasectomy, right? Which is semi-permanent. In his mind, he would rather use all of that money on himself. So down to my topic. Is soft life, do you think soft life is going to affect our future? Or rather, let's approach it this way. If we continue at this trajectory, or maybe by the end of this podcast, the question I want to be asking, because I want to ask some building questions before I get there. If we continue at this trajectory, what do you think the future will look like? But before I talk about that, how did we even get to this point? Or do you think it's not as much a thing? Like it's not so much, it's not true.
No, so what you're even saying is even scaring me because what China is going through, if you read the whole of the article, Wang Huning was the advisor of the Chinese Communist Party, if I remember clearly. And I think sometime in the 90s, he went to the US to go and
do some research on
watch the research, and he saw
yeah.
how consumerism was destroying their family units and destroying their society. And then he went back to China and they decided that they were going to put in some safeguards to prevent the Chinese society of becoming like that. But it still didn't work because they found that the richer the society became and the more work people had to do to survive, the more that this thing now ended up happening. And do you know, this thing is worrisome to me because it seems like the natural next step, the natural next event for every society that becomes rich. It's not just China. South Korea, Japan.
The life cycle
of societies.
Once they get to that point where they become very prosperous, the next thing that has followed, looking at history, is what?
Because is that night. And this is the thing, right? It's not just because of prosperity. It's because a country becoming rich leads to nihilism through the fact that the basic things that our ancestors as human beings have always used as their sense of purpose have been taken care of. Just 100 years ago, even if you didn't have a larger than life sense of purpose, there was at least one thing that would get you out of bed every day. It is the fear of your family not being taken care of.
You need to feed your
and
family.
all those kinds of things. Right? So that thing gave everybody a sense of purpose. I want my children to do better than I did. I want my family to be taken care of. And that thing gave people a sense of purpose. And so they were willing to do any kind of back-breaking work to fulfill that sense of purpose. But we're now in a society where you can actually do the bare minimum and still survive. In those days, if you do the bare minimum, you will die.
Yeah.
And your family will die. Then there's now another angle that is even coming that I don't even think I understand where it is coming from. And the only thing I can think of is just that Timothy's prophecy about the last days, men will become lovers of themselves and lovers of money and disobedient. Because this nihilism, the antinatalism, I don't understand it.
Where people just want
to live for themselves.
Civilization at themselves. Not necessarily, they don't want to procreate.
They don't want to procreate and stop civilization. Exactly, I love the way you put it. They don't see the need for procreation. I don't understand it because I picture myself in that situation of I just want to be alone. I don't want to be alone. I want to have kids. Like, it's so weird.
I think maybe what I want to do is I want to just, if I could ever come across anyone, I don't know if you've ever come across anyone like that on Twitter, to probably just ask why to maybe try and understand.
I met some people, but when he entered, I met someone like that once. But when he entered the relationship, his tone changed. So maybe he's not a good example.
When he entered like relationship,
When he got into a relationship with a girl that liked him, his tone changed. So I don't really know anybody like that. Okay, I know someone that's gone through a tough time with family, but I feel that he's still too young. His values are not yet being formed yet, so it's too early to judge.
But you say he's still too young, but here is a 27-year-old who actually got a vasectomy.
Yes, so that's what I'm saying. A 27-year-old person, not a 19-year-old. When a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old is making those tantrums of "I'll never have children, just want to enjoy my life," we are so kind. So for a 27-year-old, is that the person is stuck in infantilism? The person is stuck. He's not growing up. He's 27-year-old, but he's thinking like a teenager. Or there's something else. That's why I said I don't understand.
No, but they gave, if you remember the article, they gave a reason and they said it costs 7 times your annual income.
Oh, yes.
To be able to raise a child.
True.
One.
Yes.
So the second thing it spoke about was the endless rat race. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, maybe I didn't.
I love it. No, don't worry. You've brought.
So
you've
funny
brought
enough,
something to my
let
mind.
me. There was something else I wanted to read, which is the definition of Tangping. Tangping is a lifestyle and social protest movement in China
It's a social
beginning
protest.
April 2021. It is a rejection of societal pressures to overwork, such as in the 996 working hour system, which is often regarded as a rat race with ever diminishing returns.
Yes. Okay. So I feel you. So I have a lot of thoughts about that actually.
Yeah.
All the time I was contemplating the fact that why is it that the poorer countries have a higher birth rate, and the richer a country comes, the lower the birth rate? And I was like,
That's
on the
true.
surface, it's
Richer
supposed to
people
be,
have 1-2 kids.
Yes.
3 at
yes,
best.
yes. So on the surface, it's supposed to be like, when you are richer and more wherewithal, you should be able to have more children. That's what intuitively we Africans would think, because our ancestors, when they got rich, then they had many children and married more wives. But what thing I didn't think about is that the cost of a society getting richer is what discourages women from having children. So a society
Cost
can
of a
become
society
getting richer. Yeah, so the cost is the freedom of people. The richer societies become, the higher the human cost of maintaining that wealth.
Okay.
So if you think back in medieval times in history and before the medieval time in antiquity, human beings worked less hours per day. For example, in medieval times in the 1600s and all those times before the Industrial Revolution, the average hard worker, peasant that was a hard worker, not even the royals, hard worker was working. If you calculate the number of hours they worked per year, was equivalent of us working from January to June or May and not working again.
I think even what I heard was their work hours, like it's not by
yes, now it's something. So if we add
yeah.
everything, yes, now so they wake up early, go to the farm, then they sleep, then go in the evening, go and do some things, and then they sleep, and that's what they do. And then they had all these long periods of feast and fast. For example, in those days, in marriage, you can actually do a 1 week old wedding, 1 week long wedding ceremony. When a woman gives birth, they do 1 week and stuff like that.
How were they funding that lifestyle?
And even our ancestors were similar too in Nigeria, because I still grew up in the village, right? And I saw that a farmer's life
when they
is
have
not...
if they have a festival or something, and even most farmers, you don't see them
as a farmer, you wake up early. It's true, we wake up early by 5 to get to the farm. But once that morning work is done, and then in the evening maybe do some other small things around the farm to touch some things here and just do a few projects, maybe men defense, do and all that. But the number of hours you work cumulatively is nothing compared to the number of hours you work cumulatively in Lagos. Why? Because the more industrialized a society becomes, the more the amount of hours you have to keep that machinery working. And then the richer a country becomes, the higher the cost of living. That's why Lagos is richer than all those places, but the cost of living in Lagos is also higher.
Very high, yeah.
And that's why my parents, they are living in the village and you say they are not earning much, but they can also live on very little compared to the kind of thing that you need to live on in Lagos. So, and that's where it affects, because for you to be able to have the peace of mind and sanity to have children and nurture them and rear them properly, you need a certain amount of leisure to do it well.
Yeah.
You need the amount of leisure in your lifestyle to do it well.
Just thinking about it personally, like imagine working crazy hours, like in China, that 996 system. Imagine working those kind of crazy hours and then you come home and you have 3 children.
You can't now. It's like Lagos, so
And
that's
if
why
you
you
want
have
to
to.
raise those children properly, like you want to get them to school, you want to get
Exactly.
them in proper lessons, you want
Exactly.
to, that in itself is a full time.
Exactly.
Children are 20, you are on 24 hours call,
Yeah.
and you want to do that, and then so
Yeah. So that's actually the reason why. So their protest actually makes, I think, it's a good protest. And there's something very beautiful around about it, in that there's something also happening at the same time, which is that there is a kind of there's something religious about it. And I think it is squandering the religious impulses of people on a cause that is not worthy. For example,
okay,
the nihilism that comes from knowing that all these things doesn't make sense. I'm just working only to eat from hand to mouth. I'm just working and nothing is coming out of it. I can't even raise children and all that and all that. And so because of that, I want to just be backpacking around the world. I just want to be on my own and all those
I
things.
just want to do so the way it's called is the barest minimum
Yes.
to survive.
Yes, I'm also adding the angle of the other people that are not even that bad, but they just don't want to raise children, they just want to backpack around the world and travel and have more experiences and all that. I think there's something fundamentally kind of like a religious impulse about it. And that's kind of like how the ancient ascetics and priests would also think, how that willingness to let go of the material things of this world and focus on something more elevated,
I hear you.
something more.
So people like this are less materialistic.
Yes, they are less materialistic. So it's like their society is squandering that impulse. It's like a waste of the impulse. But that's where society is coming to. And that's why I believe so much that the way we orient our societies matter.
Yeah.
I don't think people are looking for soft life for its own sake. I think people looking for soft life is either a pushback from the way society is going or as a result of lack of a sense of purpose.
Yeah. You know, a funny thing that just came to mind. Is it even possible that this is the world trying to reset? Because
this might be a hard reset.
This might be the world trying to reset. Like, this might just be a generation trying to rebel against. They might not even know where the rebellion is coming from, but it might be so deep and innate that they're trying to rebel against this. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
You know, I think consumerism and materialism are great evils.
See, do you know what 996 is? Working 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week.
Nah.
So that's 12 hours, 6 days a week. And there are some jobs in China that are like that. So you can imagine, like, I know that jobs like what's it called, assembly line. And you know they produce a lot, right? And what you get out of, like you said, to raise a child is how many times the annual income. So you work so hard, and I'm sure they're asking themselves for what. It's going to get to a point where the work is now.
Oh, this must be the reasons why people are projecting that China's growth is not sustainable and everything.
Human beings, but don't say that. Maybe they might crack using more and more technology. But now it's looking like we have more technology, but we are working even harder.
Yeah, I think Kwanini even said something about how that it's not even about getting richer and richer anymore. It's now about consolidating your society and making your society thinner. You know, I don't believe that. I don't believe that society. Do you know? I don't believe that the world is necessarily better because we are richer and healthier and we have better technology. I don't think so.
I agree with you, because I think
it's overrated.
I think true. What we need to redefine success in world terms, to say it's not just about the amount of money. So even if you say a society has a GDP of so, the quality of life that people are living, not just the quality of life for a few people, because you can use a few people in the society to say, oh, it's fantastic. The quality of life for the majority of them is also very important. Let's bring this home a little bit to Nigeria. At least we know. And let's use Lagos as example, right? Again, just like I said, that we're seeing this way people are going to start taking stray bullets. Now, so one of the questions that I had put down when I was thinking about this is there something to be learned from this drive for what I'm tagging as soft life? Like the rebellion against sufferhead.
The rebellion against sufferhead.
The rebellion against sufferhead.
Okay.
Right. So let me. So what I put it was sufferhead versus soft life.
Because some people cannot claim to rebel against sufferhead because they've not suffered. This 996 one is justified. But a young Gen Z in Lagos that is just watching DSTV all day and does play and not say you don't want to work, like, why are you kidding? Are you joking? Like,
But I don't want to move that away. I also want to add that to the mix because it's something we are seeing prevailing. We are seeing that.
but they are two different things.
There are two different things, but I want to add it. We're seeing that the need for stuff like I said, how it's so let me put it this way. How it's showing in the Chinese society is that people want to just do the barest minimum. So if working 5 hours a day is going to give them enough, right? They said they would rather lie down and do nothing, right? So there's that. Maybe they might be coming from the place of they might be coming from a place of actually suffering, or they might be coming from the place of seeing their parents. So they might not have experienced that suffering.
Okay.
So even some of these people that you're seeing that say soft life, I remember that there was one viral post. I think it was Crack TV or so, where they put Gen Zs and millennials, and they were yapping each other. And I remember showing that in at home. One of the ones that it shook me too, millennials, where one of the Gen Z guys said that, "Are you millennial? You put likes of ahead too much, right?" And what they are calling stuff ahead, that's one question I'm also asking. What they are calling stuff ahead is what we are seeing as regular stuff, but there's a part of them that is rebelling against that, like, nah, man.
So that's what
I want soft life.
No, that's what I'm coming to. I don't think we should even put them in the same bucket, because I don't think their own rebellion against of ahead is justified. Anything good that is worth doing will have costs. We'll go through some tough times to make it happen, right? Where we can now rebel is when it has become too much, when it's going to the ceiling. For example, you cannot, I mean, you are living in an age where most of the jobs they are offering you are remote work hours, where the HR laws are much better, where you are now calling your bosses on first name and everybody's insisting on being on boss, and you're rebelling. What are you rebelling against? The people that are rebelling work 9 hours for 9 hours every day for 6 days a week.
No, not 9 hours, 12 hours actually.
Sorry, 12 hours. Yeah. 12 hours for 6 days a week. They ought to rebel. And the reason why their rebellion is justified is because they have reached the limits of human capacity and have gotten nothing for it. So the only thing left is to lie down. You can't even have children if you wanted to. You can't have a family if you wanted to. So it's as good as lying down. But you can. There is more for you to do. You've not gotten to that point. So in Nigerian Gen Z in Lagos forming that millennials are working so hard and all that, and you just want to be watching DSTV and want to get BS minimum, you are not in the same bucket. So you cannot be saying that you want to lie down and just take the BS minimum. You ought to work hard. You ought to get to your limits too before you start rebelling. You've not gotten to your limits. And that's why China became rich very fast, because they stretched themselves to the limits, but it's time for them to contract. They can't continue like that. That's why they became rich so fast, because they put the human cost of getting that machinery.
I hear a lot of romanticizing, oh, China is this, China is that. No. Do we know what they took to get?
The costs were too great. And their societal structure was able to carry it. I don't think our own societal structure will be able to carry that kind of costs. I think most likely our growth is going to be it won't be as fast as theirs. The economic growth will not be as fast as that. It will be gradual, more steady, and better. But it will also be harder to collapse. That kind of fast growth is also easy to collapse. Did you know that? Yes. They are as even though their economy is very fast and very grown very fast and everything, it's also actually very fragile. All that needs to happen is for the CCC to be collapsed and the entire structure crumbles.
Everything. So like I said from the beginning, one question, and I think we're ready to answer that question, is what do we think the future will look like if we continue at this trajectory? And okay, maybe here, and I like the fact that you actually differentiated both, right? So that we don't use laziness to hide behind a worthy rebellion. Okay, so we've differentiated the two of them, but the question is, in a society, let's say like a society like us, where it's prevalent, the same type of thing, either people rebelling or people desiring it out of co-shared experiences, either one, this soft life that people want. How do you think the future is going to be?
I think Solomon already gives us a good idea. Okay. Laziness always leads to poverty. Laziness always leads to poverty. So what that means is that both societies will become poorer. So China will become poorer, to slow down. The economy will slow down, to become poorer. And then our society that is already poor, if you have people that are being lazy, they will also become poorer too. That's what will happen.
I think there's going to be some form of mass reset, one way or the other.
Yes, so there'll be reset for both. For example, a country that is already poor, that is lazy and getting poorer, They will get to the point where everybody will call and discover that they need to work harder.
Hmm.
But a society that has gotten to the limit that is overworking and is already rich and is overworking, their own reset will be to bring them back to the center. So it's like going two directions. So the thanking will bring you back to center. Over laziness or not working, even though you're a poor
Open
country,
your eyes.
will also bring you back
Yeah.
towards this direction.
This is something that I think is worth thinking about, right? I think we can wrap the episode here. It's obvious, it's a topic that in no way has been exhausted, but it's something worth thinking about, really, to say, what's the future of this soft life that we're desiring? How is the future going to look like for our children?
You know what I think we should do? I think
Yeah.
we should take advantage of technology. I don't believe in laziness, but I also don't believe in unnecessarily hard life.
But we're going to go back through the cycle, because I thought about that too. But when you take advantage of technology, right, we say that same technology is what brought us to where we are. So as we're taking that, how do you take advantage of technology without
So
still getting
we should
here?
know. We should not be materialistic. We should know when to stop. The fear of poverty was that we would not have enough to live decent lives. But now that we're having decent lives, can we stop competing with other countries and try to get more ships and more navy carriers and having more billionaires? Can we just be okay?
Yeah.
And stop working 9-12 hours every day? Can't we just work normal hours?
So are you saying
even
we
if
should
it
just do
doesn't
the
make us
barest
billionaires?
minimum and use the many hours to enjoy?
Let's have reasonable hours, and whatever it earns us, as long as it's enough to live a dignified life, let's be okay with it. I hate materialism.
I know you do.
I hate it so much. Like, it's true, and of course, obviously, that's what I always tell people, right? It's work that actually makes countries and people rich, right? It's work that makes countries and people rich, which is understandable, right? That's what happens. But we should know when to stop.
Yeah.
Even for individuals, also as a man, you should know when to stop. You don't say, I'm working to make my family. There's a point you get to where your family has the basic minimum to live a dignified life. You have to
that's
stop.
okay. You should be contented
You
with
have to
that.
stop. You have to
and-
learn contentment.
Yeah. Because we've looked at the end of that barrel. It's
It doesn't
not good
end
for
well. It's another
anybody.
extreme.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to vex you.
It's fine. All right. Don't worry. I'm
Yeah.
calm.
I'll calm now.
Yeah.
All right. In the spirit of barest minimum, I think we're good.
Yeah, we're good.
All right. Thank you so much.
So
like,
look out for the
share,
next episode.
subscribe, and
Share
look
with
out-
someone.
Look out for the next episode. Thank you guys so much.
All right. Bye.